Good evening, and welcome to another Blacc Tea Podcast. I'd like to first give honor and thanks to God for giving us this vision. And we on the Blacc Tea would like to honor our military and our veterans, past, present, and future, and thank them for giving us our freedom. Our topic tonight is going to be duty and diversity, the legacy of Black American heroes. My name is Phyllis Holloman, and I will be your host tonight. With me is Janelle Robinson, a Blacc Tea member, Deirdre Robinson, a Blacc Tea member. Our guest tonight is Ashley Caldwell, Darlene Johnson, Senior Master Sergeant, U.S. Air Force, retired. Denise Martin, Major, U.S. Air Force, retired. And I'd like to ask Denise to share her journey in the military and beyond.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the Blacc Tea Podcast members for this invite. My journey for me is short but sweet. I have my purpose when I first started thinking about the military is I grew up in a military family, so I knew nothing other than the military. I applied for the military academy when it first opened up to women in 1976. I got accepted to go to the academy, but soon found out after my acceptance that I needed a birth certificate, and all I had was a birth affidavit. I was born abroad. I was born in Japan and spent 10 years there as a military dependent, and therefore I got invited to come to the second year. But in retrospect, I realize now I probably shouldn't have passed that up, but I wanted to go in. I wanted to spread my wings and move on. And so I joined the military as an enlisted member. I was had the advantage of going into the medical field. I was a medic on air evacuation, so I spent the first year working in a hospital, learning all the different services that I would encounter with patients in the air. I did 3 years of medical evacuation, going to places like the Philippines at Clark Air Force Base, spending time in Alaska. I usually did this about once a month I flew. Once to twice a month I flew. And the rest of the time I spent at my base. Now, I actually went in the first year active duty. The following 3 I did as a reservist so that I could go back to school.
Thank you so much, Denise. Now, a Senior Master Sergeant Darlene, can you please tell us and share with us your journey in the military and beyond?
Sure. First of all, I just want to thank you for having me as a guest. Veterans Day, it holds close to my soul because, of course, my journey pretty much consists of a 28-year journey, just dating back to my dad, who was active duty, excuse me, as well. So me coming into the military was basically out of necessity, I guess you would say. I didn't think that I was just going to graduate from high school, go to college, and then join the military. But just coming from a military family, living here in Fairfield and Travis, just up the way, met my ex-husband there, got married, and he was in the military. Then he got out of the military. I decided to come in and did 28 years. It became my career, just traveling. He became my dependent. Had 2 beautiful daughters the whole time I was, within the 28 years. Had some great assignments, had some great positions. I did 2 tours in Hawaii. I got to go to England, Japan. My daughter was born in Japan. Did some tours overseas in Italy and supported Operation Enduring Freedom in Pakistan. So those 28 years taught me a lot. Being a Black female in the military, exciting, learned a lot, wouldn't trade it for the world, which brings me full circle to being back here in Fairfield, retired veteran.
I mean, being that all of our fathers were in the military, right? I mean, we went from drill team, you went from drill team in Fairfield High School to the military. At that point, that was a brave move as far as I was concerned, because I didn't choose that pathway. I stayed closer to home. But do you feel that your experience as a dependent gave you the confidence to move forward?
Well, I think just the fact that my dad was in and then doing all the traveling and seeing what he went through active duty wise kind of helped me as far as joining the military. And my uncle used to tell me and my brother that we were always had to be told what to do, when to do, how to do, because we come from a military background, and that we couldn't think for ourselves. So as a young girl being told that, I did kind of carry that into my military career because I was very apprehensive about making a decision or doing anything. But truthfully, I just think the fact that my father was in, not that I knew what to expect, but I think it better prepared me for what was to come.
Yeah, well, I was never in the military, but I was in a form of military. I worked for the Sheriff's Department, Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department, as a deputy, excuse me, for 25 years. So it was like, it was structured like the military. We had to go through basic training. We had to wear a uniform. We had ranks and file. And I was probably the third, I want to say the third, maybe the fourth Black female on that department at that time.
So too.
And it was tough, It's tough being in an all-male job or environment, first of all.
First, I also give respect to my father, who did 22 years. And you are right, my dad retired as a colonel. And when he did retire, we had moved every 18 months. So I can't tell you, the only states that I haven't been in the United States are Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. But every other state, yes, we traveled through, went there, and went on to the next assignment, and we ultimately landed at Travis. But I had an opportunity, because I like to do a lot of volunteer work, working in my community, and I was working for the Walnut Creek Chamber of Commerce. It was the East Bay Women's Conference. And that particular year, Mae Jemison was our guest speaker. So Mae Jemison was the first female astronaut, and she was also African American. She went to Stanford, went to Cornell. I think we were talking about that yesterday, Ashley.
Yeah,
some of the journeys that she had taken, and it was just phenomenal to share that space with her. And what I did to make an impression about Mae Jemison was the chamber. This is Walnut Creek is also in Contra Costa County, but there's not a large population of Black children there. And I was asked by the members of the chamber to go to those schools where they did have a larger population of Black children, so that they could be the guests of the chamber, so that they had an opportunity to be able to meet Mae Jemison. It was exciting. And now we have the U.S. Space Force, and she will always go down in history as being the first.
All of the people that have served ahead of me in my bloodline, I would say one of the biggest ones was my grandpa, my great-grandpa, Odell Lee. He actually served in World War II, believe it or not. And that was the time where a lot of the people he originated from Mississippi, but a lot of the people that lived in the Vallejo area, the California area, had to enlist in World War II. And I just remember my mom was telling me the stories of how the biggest thing was my grandma, her name is Gussie Lee, or was, she actually took on a different role just in the family by being by being his wife and having 2 children and everything. And I just think it's really interesting, like how a war can allow the wife to step up in a different role as well too. And I remember my mom was telling me that she would make sure that she would tell her friends to tell their friends, and also for her to be able to like pray for my grandpa, and for him to have a safe return back. And he ended up having a very safe return back. So yeah, those kind of moments very much touch my heart.
Our next topic for Darlene and Denise, our honored guests, is I would like for them to discuss with us opportunities and roles and positions for Blacks in the military today.
You know, for from my perspective, as far as roles, I mean, we have seen in the last 20, 30 years a multitude of changes, especially in the last almost 15. We're seeing more women involved in combat. We're seeing more combat pilots, that women are being allowed to fly. Women are being allowed to, in the Army, to be in tanks. I've had the opportunity in my civilian career now to work with some of the first Army women that were allowed to, go to war in tanks. Obviously, we've seen just when Afghanistan and all of that started, or where we were sending a lot more women over, where they were, besides being on the medical side, they were on the logistics side, and in harm's way. So to say that's an opportunity, I know there have been plenty of women who volunteered for those positions and wanted to go, and rightfully so, they should. If they were volunteering for them, there shouldn't be any other position out there unless it's based on your size and you literally can't reach the pedals. You're not an asset at that point to your fellow soldier, but there's plenty of jobs out there that women can do, and I'm so happy to see that more women are actually being allowed to do those jobs that they want to do. Seen a lot more women moving into the engineering phase, which I thought was awesome to see women who are in training phases to teach armed combat, to teach firearms training. Unfortunately, none of them got to me before I got out, so I was really not the best GI Jane when it came to holding a revolver. So I'm glad that no one ever put me out there. Um, but as far as training, again, when you come into the service, it's and mentorship is probably the best, but I never really saw a program to this day that mentored the Black soldiers. You normally would get somebody that was within your let's say your the area that you worked in, who actually would be the one who would provide that mentorship. But I'd like to see more on the outside with like the Black Caucus, with other organizations like that that actually start going to universities and trying to push, because I don't see a lot of young people wanting to come into the service, not in and because they are not introduced to the engineering of how to get into to be a pilot. Most of those higher ranking staff officers, and when I say that's like generals, all those people, their background either was in engineering or they were a pilot. And in order for us to matriculate to those levels, we need to start at the lower level with schools and talking to high school students and introducing them.
I'd like to move on just to another topic real quick, and that's about sexual harassment in the military. And I'd like to ask Denise if she could maybe talk a little bit about any sexual harassment that you have heard about or that you know about, or is it prevalent in the military?
I wouldn't go as far as to say there's a lot, no more than on the outside in the civilian world, which it's prevalent everywhere. Anywhere that you have a location where it's a lot of male dominant positions that you're in, as women, we face that on a day-to-day basis, depending on what type of job we have. I will say that the military has zero tolerance, and so they are trying to make sure that they are addressing it. There's unique situations when things like that happen, and where it happens, and if someone doesn't come forward and let someone know, then it's really hard to really do anything about. But again, we have a zero tolerance, so I'm never going to say that it never happens. I'm sure it does. I have personally known people who have claimed that they were sexually assaulted, especially in the wartime situations where people were in Afghanistan, and if they were in a unit that was primarily males, yes, it definitely has happened. I don't doubt that they were telling the truth.
But I know that Darlene actually spent, I know during the time that you were in the military, you were doing a remote assignment where you lived in a tent, I believe, for a number of years. And I'm wondering, when not on base, but more in that remote assignment, is it more prevalent? How did you as women come together? If you could share that experience a little bit. How did that work out
Well,
for
I didn't
you?
live in a tent for years.
Oh, how long were you there? It seemed like for years. I was very upset that you were in that tent. I remember that part.
Oh, it was at a deployed location. It was in Pakistan and also in Turkey. I lived in a tent. So just to speak on, like Denise said, the military has zero tolerance for sexual harassment. Whether you're deployed, whether you're at your permanent location, it does happen. But there are measures that the military have put in place that you have annual training. Not only the active duty military, you have to go through annual training for sexual awareness, prevention measures, but the DoD civilians, the NAF civilians, anybody that's working on a military installation have annual training to be aware and to how to prevent, how to speak up, how to say what happened, not to be afraid.
Right.
I sat on a case with the harassment. It was 2 officers, and she came forward, but while I was sitting on the panel, all the men were blaming her. Like, why was she over there at his place in the first place? It was a date, but no means no, and that's what she was trying to say. No means no. So was she sexually harassed? Yes, but here's this panel of men trying to say, well, she shouldn't have been over there in the first place, blah, blah, blah. But the military do recognize sexual harassment, and they have measures in place. Does everybody listen? No. But is training documented? Yes.
Is it always men on these panels? Are there any women
I
on
only
these
can
panels?
speak
Thank
for the
goodness
panel
she
I
was on it.
I mean, I was on it, but and those panels don't happen all the time. But it's just that women aren't the only one that are sexually harassed. Men,
That's true.
men too. So
That's true.
These days. So you just have to be careful. I think just to have the training, the preventive measures in place, the awareness. It's all there because we see it in the news constantly. Just
Right.
like you have. Has the military come a long way? Yes, because zero tolerance for that, zero tolerance for drugs. So it's just great changes, good changes that have come along. So it's just up to that female or that person that's being harassed, that victim, to step forward and be heard and know that somebody's going to be there in their corner. There's a lot of places they can go. They can go to they can go to their pastor, they can go to the chaplain, they can go to their first sergeant, but speak up.
What about men? Do men ever report it?
Yes, definitely.
And I think, Phyllis, you can attest to this, being that you did work in law enforcement, that usually I think one of the most difficult things is for a woman to come back and say that's,
Yes.
even though the policies are there, there's a sense of shame and guilt, feeling like, what did you do to deserve this, and what did you do to make that person feel that
Right.
that's what you wanted, and how do you get over that, and how do you go back to work and deal with those kinds of things. And I'm so glad to hear that there are mental health aspects to this, and that the military is tolerant, because I've heard of women outside of that have had to return to their assignments after being assaulted, because this is the only place that you can be, and there is a little bit of lack of insensitivity when it comes to that, when it comes to, I'll say for both sides, the opposite sex.
A lot of times they're treated like the suspect instead of the victim.
Right. And then also, even if it's a man, there's a sense of guilt, really shame.
Especially for a man.
Especially for a man. So, that whole, I don't understand it that much, but I know that society is impacted by it. And I'm glad to hear that it's been corrected. And I do know who you're talking about, the senator from Arizona, and I'm appreciative of the fact that you brought that to light, because that was one of the things when she came into Congress that she was attesting to, that experience that she had, so that hopefully her acknowledging it herself would allow others to feel comfortable in coming forward. So kudos. That was a great question, Phyllis. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'd like to now discuss with our honored guests the vision for the future of the military.
My vision is just for them to stand up for what they believe. If you raise that right hand and you've already said that I'm enlisting because I want to protect my country, we're all cut from the same cloth, whether we serve 2 years or 42 years. That's what we want to do is provide that freedom for our country. So visionaries, if you decide to come into the military, that's your vision. You already know the path that you're going to take. You're going to make that your career. For blacks, black women, black men, just minorities in general, there's so much opportunity to be in the military for them now.
Mm-hmm.
Just to have the vision of where we're going. We have a Space Force now. Who would have thought of that?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the vision is great. It just depends on that individual, what they're looking for when they do come into the military, when they do enlist. What course do they want to take? It's your own vision.
Has enlistment changed? Because I know before it seemed like there were more minorities enlisting in the military, but I know a lot of things have changed as far as benefits. I think they've cut some of the benefits down, or they don't get as much as they were before. Has any of that changed, or has that any of that maybe deterred people from not enlisting?
Well, I wouldn't say it's changed as far as financially. You're going to make what you make according to what your rank is, but the benefits are all there. Health benefits, savings, education. Okay. So I don't think it's diminished. It's actually improved.
Well, I know for education, because I work in the education field, post 9/11 offered a great opportunity for those that were in the armed forces to go to school. And one of the benefits was that they could get a full ride. Their education would be paid for at the time if they had served in Afghanistan or Iraq wars, right? And the other thing that they would pay is for your housing.
Right.
So I worked in San Francisco at Golden Gate University, and that became a very attractive place to go because of the cost of living in the state of California and what that would bring for their family. So we had a partnership going to be able to help military, working with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that's where Denise is right now, but to be able to allow them the opportunity to go to school.
Right.
I'm almost, after listening to the two of you, I'm now, for the very first time in my life, and this is no joke, thinking, I don't know why I didn't join the military.
I know, me too.
Because I was so adamant about, 22 years, I did it. No, I don't want to move. I don't want to go anywhere. But you too make it sound like such a wonderful opportunity.
And I tried to give that same wonderful opportunity to my two daughters. But they said blue was not their color.
Well, did you do a lot of traveling?
Yes.
Yeah, my daughter was born in Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, wow.
They got to go to Paris.
See, that's the only
They
reason I would want to
traveled
join,
quite a
so I
bit.
could travel.
Well, let me tell you, I met Dolly in Hawaii. I met her in Germany. We
Okay.
went to the Netherlands
See?
from there. I got to go to Paris while I was visiting her. So, but I didn't see it. I wish that you two had been my recruiters.
Yeah.
Right? It would have been a different viewpoint, because what I remember about this, and we touched on this lightly, is the other part of the military is the family. And especially when you get a remote assignment and you can't take your family with you. And I remember when my dad was on a remote assignment for Vietnam, and I remember him not seeing my dad for long periods of time, or even he would go in what they called TDY, which was temporary duty something or other, and he could be gone for 30, 60, or 90 days and then come back and you don't see him. Well, guess what? Then the wife is the one that has to support them. If my dad is being transferred, the wife's like, oh, okay, well, let's see how I'm going to get the kids in school, get everybody packed up, get ready to go. So it's not just, the military that are part of this aspect, but it's also, the family that's involved. And I just thought everybody did. When I was growing up, I was shocked when I came to Fairfield and my dad had retired, that people started, remember, it seemed like it was an exodus. I don't know if you saw this, Denise, where people were, their dads were retiring, right? All this at the same time. So our dads retired and everybody started going to school off base. Well, it was everybody that I had already known, but the world of meeting civilians, you didn't have to go to Okinawa, you didn't have to.
So you were in the military schools your whole time you were in school?
Most of the time. I can remember twice that I was not going to school on base.
Oh.
And it was second grade. I remember that. And I think fourth grade, I integrated a school in Virginia in fourth grade. And when I say I integrated it, I mean that the Civil Rights Bill had just been passed so that blacks could go to school, but we were always going to school on base. And that's why that community was always very diverse. So it was a culture shock, if you will, to be in that environment.
Yeah. I'm curious, what made you, both of you, if you both would answer this question, what made you join the military?
That's a good question.
That's a real good question.
I followed in my dad's footsteps.
Oh my God! Now my dad, I'm gonna have to hear that. Wait till he hears it.
Was in the military as well. But I think that's the main thing Denise said, just being exposed to having a military background, pretty much knew what to expect.
Yep.
Knew we were going to travel. The young airmen that I've supervised that would come in and they were thinking about, they just didn't like it. They wanted to get out. But what they need to understand is you can enlist for 4 years. You can enlist for 6 years. You take those 4 years, you can get your degree within that
That's
time.
right.
And it's,
That's right.
have it work for you. And you could travel within that time. If you don't like it, you got your 4 years, you get out.
Yeah.
If
Right.
you like it, you extend for another 4 years.
Right.
So you control your own destiny in the military, just like with anything else. You could be that good troop, or you could be that bad troop. You could get your school done. You could cross-train into another job if you want to. Do like Denise, be enlisted and then become an officer. So there's different paths you could take within the military as well.
But now probably wouldn't be a good time since we're
not.
war everywhere, right?
I can't see
I don't
it.
know. Would this be a good time?
When you raise your right hand, I'm going to go defend my country.
Okay.
Well, Darlene, you also have, besides your father, I was thinking, I told you before we started the podcast, I was like, didn't all your brothers, they were in the military? And then I thought, what was it, your nephew went to the military for a period of time?
Right.
So I could go into Darlene's mom's house and all on the wall, she was very proud. And she had all of her children's pictures of them in their uniform, just like she said,
Yeah.
to make sure. That's right.
That's right. One of my brothers was stationed in the Philippines, and he was killed over there. He was due to rotate back to the back here to the States,
Yeah,
but
Duke.
he was killed over there. And the military funeral was great right here in Fairfield. He's buried at the cemetery here in Fairfield. But yes, it's a military family that I come from. That's for sure.
Yeah. I don't remember who shared this story with me about being in an area where someone had not been exposed to Black America. Who was that? Was it Denise or was it you, Darlene?
It was me.
Okay, share that story.
A fellow
how
retiree. We all have stories. So he told me a story when he first came into the military. He's from a very rural, small town, no blacks. Basically never really grew up around blacks. And now he joins the military and he goes off to basic training and he's scared to death because now he has to be around blacks and he has never ever been around blacks. But then he said, I get there and I'm working with these black guys and I'm like, hey, they're just like me, you know? And it just, the realization that he had that you would never think that somebody would never have been around black people. You mean you've never been around a black person? But now you decide to join the military and that's all you're going to see. But
What you say, that's all they go see?
he adapted very well. But just hear the different stories that you think about, it's just natural for us because me and Deirdre grew up in the military. So.
Yep.
But then you have those that join the military. So it's so diverse. And that inclusion, that diversity is very important. And like I said, the military has come a long way because they prepare you, they train you, they teach you. You know, it's an annual thing. So you would think nobody would have an excuse. There's no excuse, but they're only humans. So there are going to be some that fall through the cracks. They do bad things, but we're aware of it.
And I admire that too. I just admire how, like, just looking from the outside, and if you're in the military, if you're a veteran, you may not think that you have connections with all of these different people that are serving and doing the same exact thing as you. But I think one of the biggest things about being in the military, being a veteran, is it's a melting pot. And it really promotes unity, or it should promote unity among anyone that's serving. And I just admire that so much.
Thank you, Ashley.
And the amazing thing is that when they got done serving in the military, they now are still working in civilian positions supporting the military. So both of them are still involved with that. So really, you've done more than 28 and 25, did you say, Denise, years? It's been, how many now, really, total?
Total for me, it's
I've been with the VA for almost 14 years.
So beyond that including military, what time? How much time is that?
It gives me like
50 years.
more than I want to count at this point. Because I've passed 35 years. So.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
How about you, Darlene?
Combined military and federal service right now, I'm hitting that 43 years.
43?
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
But I
Thank
think
you.
just the job I do is morale, welfare, and recreation. So we take care of the troops from cradle to grave. So
Right.
everything that has to do with child care centers, the libraries, teen centers, the bowling center, all the fun stuff.
The bowling
So-
center.
Yeah, golf course. So that's me. Anything entertainment-wise. So I've had overseas, I've had Funkadelic there, Parliament, Tom and David said. So just entertaining the troops.
Sinbad,
It's
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
So whenever I can get some entertainment in, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Well, that's why I went to visit her in Germany.
Oh, okay.
I visited her in Germany, and we ended up going to the North Sea Jazz Festival. One of the best experiences. Maybe that's why I like Boney James so much.
Well, can you get some of them on Travis Air Force Base? Can we get some Earth, Wind, and Fire on Travis?
I know, right? We brought him to Germany, but
Okay, well, we'd like to thank our honored guests. Thank you for your service. Thank you for our freedom, because without you guys, freedom wouldn't be, I know freedom isn't free, but we wouldn't have
Freedom is
the
not
freedom
free.
that we have now. So thank you both. And thank you for being on our podcast tonight. I would like to honor my husband who served 4 years in the Air Force. He was a first sergeant, Edward Holloman. I am wearing his dog tags in honor of him. So he passed in 2013. He did serve in Vietnam, and he died from, they said he died from Agent Orange from being in Vietnam. So he served 4 years. So thank you, sweetie.
thank you.
So I'd like to thank you as well, and thank you, audience, for joining us again on the Blacc Tea Podcast. You know what we do. We like, we share, we subscribe. And I want to know if there are any takeaways. If you have any takeaways from this particular broadcast, something that you can carry with you, please note that in the comments section below. We would really appreciate that. And hit us up on the DMs. That's the Blacc Tea, BLACCT podcast. We're always ready to connect on IG, TikTok, X, Facebook, YouTube, any way you can. We love it. You like it, we love it. I want to let you know that on the 25th of November, we are going to be with the American Express BossCon in the city of Fairfield. We are going to be at the Fairfield Small Business Saturday. That's November 25th, downtown Fairfield. And again, to our honored guests, we so appreciate you. I think Janelle has something that she would like to give to Miss Darlene. Oh. Yes, and Denise, I believe you can share what you've gotten too.
Yeah, we just wanted to say thank you again for joining us and really appreciate your time and your services. So, Miss Denise, I sent you a special package today, and I know you received it, and I do hope that you enjoy them. There's some. And then we have some for you too, Miss Dolly.
Okay. Yes, her name is, in our neighborhood, her name is Dolly, but her name is Darlene. So we wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's it for us this evening.
See you next time.
We'll see you soon. Peace.
Okay, guys, thanks so much.
Peace
Thank
out.
you.